Okay, good morning everyone, and thank you for joining us at the first Pendle Education Summit. It's a great pleasure to have so many of you with us this morning. Over the next couple of hours, we'll hear from 10 guest speakers who will outline the importance of employer engagement with schools and colleges. We'll learn how this engagement inspires students and supports their personal and career development, and how this, in turn, will lead to future growth and success for all businesses across the region. We'll also hear why the need to forge ties between business and education has never been greater. Our guest speakers from industry bodies will cover aspects of the need for education and employer engagement, discuss the skills gaps in Lancashire, and outline the schemes and mechanisms in place to support engagement. These include the Given Hour scheme, the Skills Pledge, and the voluntary role of Enterprise Advisor. Local education providers will share the vast benefits employer engagement has brought to their pupils, both in terms of interpersonal development, understanding the world of work, becoming aware of local roles available, and developing interpersonal skills. We're also joined by guest speakers from Pendle companies who will share the skills shortages they're experiencing when trying to recruit, how they're supporting local schools, and why more businesses need to engage with their future workforce. We'll hear a regional perspective on the unique opportunities that living, studying and working in Pendle can bring, and also a national perspective on the need for enhanced engagement and new government initiatives to support students. I'm Rachel Kay of Pendle Connects. I'm the organiser and host of this event, which has been made possible by the Lancashire Careers Hub, which is managed by Inspirer, the Lancashire LEP and the Careers and Enterprise Company. The event is being recorded and will be disseminated to all registered attendees. Once all our speakers have taken the floor, so around 10:40 a.m, we'll have a 20-minute Q&A session. So if anyone has any questions as we go along, please do click the question bubble at the top of the screen, and we'll go through the questions and put them to the speakers at the end. So I'm now delighted to introduce the first of this morning's speakers. Andrew Stephenson is the MP for Pendle and also the Government Minister for Transport. Andrew is joining us this morning to share a national perspective on the importance of employer engagement with education. Also, we'll discuss the decline in apprenticeships and how national skills initiatives can support our young people. Thank you, Andrew.
Well, thank you, Rachel, for that introduction, and thank you for having me today. First of all, can I thank the organisers? Can I thank all the participants? Can I thank Nelson Cone College for so kindly offering to host the event? Of course, we are now still in this virtual world, so rather than seeing each other in person, sadly, you're joining me in my backyard in Colne. Apologies for the noise in the background, but it's much nicer outside. It gives me an opportunity to put my England bunting up, ready for the weekend. Working with employers and education, bringing education and employment together is so important across Pendle. It is so important for our young people, and we already have many businesses who have recognised the huge benefits to them of doing this, but there are many others who haven't yet recognised those benefits. So I hope between all the different speakers today we can inspire other businesses and other stakeholders to get even more involved in working with our local education establishments. We all share a belief that we want our young people to thrive, and as we move out of the pandemic and try to move back to normality, we must all work together to improve the career opportunities for young people. Over the past 11 years as Pendle's Member of Parliament, I have seen some really great examples of employer education collaboration. Everything from the aerospace businesses who have lent aero engines to local schools to sit in the reception areas to inspire young people into STEM careers, through to factory tours, work experience placements, careers days, young enterprise involvement, mentoring, a huge range of collaborations between local employers and our local college, and also, most importantly, with our local schools. Many employers are already deeply embedded with our local schools and college, and they recognise the clear benefits, but there is always more that we can do. So I'm looking forward to hearing from the other speakers. For me, one of the best ways to improve the career opportunities for young people is certainly through the promotion and the development of apprenticeships, which are a great way for young people to learn and develop those key skills. I stood on a manifesto back in 2010 committed to improving apprenticeships and increasing the number of apprenticeships. And I'm delighted that since 2010, the amount of funding available for apprenticeships across England has more than doubled to now £2.5 billion. And since 2010, we've seen over 3.8 million people start an apprenticeship, which is fantastic. And of course, here in Pendle, numbers have doubled, but more recently that growth has started to stagnate. So we need to re-energize and re-turbocharge the drive to get young people to look at an apprentice. During that time, we've seen some great transformations. We've seen companies like Silent Knights, who didn't employ a single apprentice back in 2010, now employing dozens of apprentices and having an award-winning apprenticeship scheme. There is clearly a lot happening, but there is clearly more for us to do, which is why this summit is so timely. In the introduction, it was also mentioned that another role that I have, in addition to being the local MP here, is Minister of State for Transport in the DFT. Part of that role means that I look after the high-speed rail project, the Northern Powers Rail project, and the Trans-Pennine route upgrade. I also look after skills. And one of the great joys of the job is being able to go out and look at what's happening across the transport sector to develop skills. Yesterday, I was at Old Oak Common Station in London, celebrating the fact that HS2 had taken on their 650th apprentice delivering the project. The HS2 programme will create over 2,000 apprenticeships during its course. And that is really important. It's really important. I am seeing firsthand how important it is, not just for the young people who are gaining those apprenticeships, but how it is helping improve the delivery of the project, how it is helping diversify the transport sector. It is no secret to say that the transport sector, and particularly the rail sector, has been incredibly male dominated and dominated by white men as well. And yet when we look at the cohort of apprentices now starting working for Highways England, for Network Rail, or for HS2, you're seeing much greater diversity. The HS2 apprentices, around 50% are women, over 20% are from a AME background. And that is bringing new perspectives into the company, that is bringing new insights, that is helping the company deliver the project and providing that pipeline of talent that will drive transformational change in the transport sector for years to come. And while I was talking about HS2 and some of these big transport investments may seem slightly abstract sat here in Pendle, I can assure you it's not. Just 3 weeks ago, I was launching one of the first tunnel boring machines under the Chilterns, and there on the side of the machine, the fire protection equipment on the machine, the fire alarm systems, proudly installed by Protec in Nelson. And I know many other local SMEs have been joining online discussions, some of the discussions hosted by stakeholders like East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce, looking at the opportunities they have to start providing for HS2 or for Network Rail. So these projects are a way that we're helping build back better from the pandemic. They are a way that we are providing more skills and opportunities. And linked to apprenticeships, strengthening the links between employers and education has been strengthened by the introduction of T-levels. Of course, this is something that Nelson Colne College has pioneered and done an incredible amount of work on. And these courses, for those who don't know, have been developed in association with industry experts and involve quality placements with industry. I welcome the Skills for Jobs white paper, which alongside the new T-levels aims to overhaul the education system by helping to level up opportunity and support our economic recovery. These measures aim to put an end to the mistaken view that an academic degree is the only route to success and a good job, and that further and technical education are in some way second-class options. But to deliver this change, employers must be at the heart of our skills system. By 2030, employers will be given a central role in designing almost all technical courses. to ensure that the education and training people receive is directly linked to the skills needed for real jobs. Much of this will be delivered through local skills improvement plans led by employer representative bodies that will bring employers, colleges and other important stakeholders together to tailor the provision of technical skills to the needs of the local area's businesses. Applications to be part of the pilot project closed just a few weeks ago, so we should hear more about this soon and which areas of the country will be hosting the pilots. All this work is being supported by a £65 million strategic development fund to put plans into action and establish new college business centres to drive innovation and enhance collaboration with employers. In addition, the government is boosting the apprenticeship incentive scheme by focusing on expanding opportunity in places which have experienced economic decline through opportunity area programmes. They will also have £18 million of new funding. And on top of that, there is of course also the new £2.5 billion commitment for a National Skills Fund, which will support people learning new skills and preparing the economy for the future. Of that fund, £127 million will be provided to continue support for people to build the skills they need to get into work, building on the plan for jobs, including funding for traineeships and apprenticeships. Moreover, Chancellor Rishi Sunak's Kickstart scheme puts young people right at the heart of the economic recovery by supporting those at risk of long-term unemployment into paid placements or apprenticeships across the public, private and voluntary sectors. The government's plan for jobs marked its 1-year anniversary yesterday, and we mark the fact that over the past year, an incredibly difficult year for the education institutions across the country, but also for employers, the government plan for jobs has spent £352 billion supporting, protecting and creating employment. That means, thanks to all those investments, including things like the furlough scheme, there are now over 2 million people more in work than we expected to be in work at the start of the pandemic. Delivering on levelling up in Pendle will only be possible if we see better engagement between education and employers, and we make best use of the government funding that's been available. This will help businesses and education providers create the high-skilled jobs and prosperous future for students in Pendle that we all want to see. Can I draw my remarks to an end by thanking you all for participating? I think we have an incredible lineup of speakers. I know that there are many local businesses and other important stakeholders attending to listen to the debate. I look forward to hearing from the other speakers, and then I look forward to answering any questions people have towards the end of the session. Back to Rachel.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Take myself off mute, that would help, wouldn't it? Thank you very much indeed. And isn't it exciting to hear that employers will be able to actually get into courses and design technical level courses so that the skills that young people are getting are going to match those that they need to be employed. So speaking again about skills and about skills gaps in the county, our next speaker is Dr. Michele Lawty-Jones. Michele is the director of the Lancashire Skills Hub and a board member of the LEP. Michele will talk about the importance of closer employer education ties and also how it will meet employer needs and mean that young people have both the life and technical skills they need to succeed. Thank you, Michele.
Excellent, thanks very much, Rachel, and delighted to be here and working in partnership with Pendle Connects and the employers across the area to support our young people. So as Rachel said, Director of the Skills Hub, supporting the work of the Skills and Employment Advisory Panel, which is a pan-Lancashire body that brings together industry, public sector and providers to talk about the skills and employment challenges across Lancashire and work proactively together. So I have to start with what a year, blimey, what a year. Who saw this coming? So we've had a year like no other, which has impacted on both our employers, our young people, our education system and the residents of Lancashire. We've been tracking the impact of the pandemic on the local economy since last March, and the challenges that that has resulted in, and trying to work together to proactively support people and businesses across Lancashire, whether that's supporting businesses to kind of pivot towards digital, whether it's supporting furloughed workers to develop their skills in preparation for the return to work, supporting people facing redundancy, supporting people back into work, and very importantly, boosting the aspirations of our younger people who've been impacted by the pandemic and obviously had a rather disrupted educational journey. I mean, we've seen fantastic resilience from partners as well, coming together to work together on that agenda. So I thought it'd be useful just to throw in a few statistics, not to put a negative edge on things, but just to kind of describe the impact of the pandemic, specifically in Pendle. So in terms of that tracking of data, inevitably we have seen a rise in unemployment. We've seen a rise in universal credit claimants. So across Lancashire, across the country, and of course in Pendle, with unemployment rising from 3.7% to 7.2% from March 22 to May 2020. March 2020 to May 2020, and that's sat at around 7.3% since. So it's slightly above the Lancashire and England averages, and we've seen that increase. For our younger people, that has been more acute, as I'm sure you're all aware, and we've seen for the 18 to 24 group, that increased to 10.7%. So what does that mean in terms of numbers? So just to give you a feel for what that means in terms of scale, that's 700 young people between 18 and 24 that are currently unemployed, of a group of 4,000 individuals across Pendle who are seeking to re-engage with employment. So quite a significant number of young people that need our support as a collective. So this really does emphasise the need for us to work together to support young people in education to effectively transition into work and further education, as well as support those younger people that have been displaced. In terms of furlough data, and obviously Andrew referenced the tremendous furlough scheme that's been in place since the beginning of the pandemic. And we know for Pendle, 8.4% of all jobs that are eligible are currently furloughed. And again, this equates to roughly 3,000 people. On a positive, this has reduced from 13% to 8.4%. And we've seen 1,700 people return mainly into work because we haven't seen a corresponding increase in unemployment. So that's really positive that people are returning to employment. I mean, clearly we've got some way to go, and you know, when the cliff edge of furlough is upon us, what that means in terms of people returning to work, and we're doing all that we can to support businesses around that. The most significant numbers have been in manufacturing, wholesale and retail, and of course accommodation and food services and the hospitality industries, as you would expect. What's encouraging is that the vacancy data is showing an upturn in opportunities. So again, we track the vacancy data, and we can see that since March 2021, so over the last few months, we've seen higher postings compared to both 2020 but also 2019, so pre-pandemic. So we are seeing an increase in demand in terms of vacancies and postings. So the challenge is us to work collectively to support people into those roles and to pivot skills from sector to sector to support individuals. So we're seeing increases in demand across STEM occupations, health and social care roles, education, retail trade, logistics, leisure and service roles and hospitality. So quite a number of different vacancies available, and also digital. And of course, looking to the future, there's still a demand for skills, and we know through, for example, manufacturing in Pendle, we've seen growth annually since 2015. It's the second largest manufacturing location in Lancashire, contributing 850 million to the economy. So we are anticipating continued growth, and that being a significant employer for the area. Low carbon, so clicking into what Andrew was saying, So those net zero implications, we're anticipating growth of 44,000 jobs by 2030 across Lancashire alone. So there'll be many opportunities for individuals, from vehicles and transport to low carbon electricity to construction and associated infrastructure. So lots of opportunities. And of course, industrial digitisation, where we're anticipating growth in digital roles, and we've already got skill shortages and gaps and a need to engage more young people into digital. We did a digital landscape research piece last year, and we know that we really need to encourage our younger people to think about digital roles and engage, for example, in computer science and tech subjects. Our data told us that we've got a very small percentage of 16 to 24-year-olds in our digital workforce, and only 1 in 5 are female. So again, that diversity issue in terms of attracting a greater diversity in our STEM industries and our digital roles, again reinforcing what Andrew was saying around diversity in the transport sector and construction, for example. So we are making headway, but we need to do more in that space to provide particularly positive role models that younger people can associate with. So we are seeing as well a demand for, when you look forward, intermediate and higher level technical skills. So this chimes with the skills white paper that was published by government earlier in the year, and the increasing focus on putting employers at the heart of the education system and helping to drive the development of qualifications, working collaboratively with providers. So for us, that is a passion. We have our Lancashire Technical Education Vision. We are working collaboratively with colleges, universities, providers, businesses across the area to drive the development of a high-performing technical education system. And we are blessed to have a number of high-performing colleges across the area, including Nelson and Con College, who are one of the first colleges to be testing the new T-levels, which is the technical equivalent to A-levels. So it's really important that we work together to ensure that younger people have a real insight into choices around both those academic and technical pathways, whether they be T-levels or apprenticeships. So really positive routes into high quality, high value jobs. So balancing those two routes is really critical. And so that brings me on to the Careers Hub, which has been in place now for a few years in Lancashire, bringing people together around that careers provision. And I say our Careers Hub because it very much is a collaboration. So working together with the Careers and Enterprise Company, with Inspirer, and most importantly, our schools, our colleges and our employers to really inspire young people about future opportunities. And I know Lisa and Rachel will be talking more about this later in the agenda. So really important to drive that careers excellence, really important to make sure we're giving young people a balanced perspective of academic and technical routes, and the impact that employers can have on enabling young people to gain insights into different jobs, different sectors, the local labour market intelligence, and what those future possibilities are for our younger people. It's really important. And also breaking some of the myths about the current job market, because a lot of young people, because of the media and some of the messages that are coming out around the impact of the pandemic, are perceiving that there is a flat job market, when absolutely that is not the case. We're seeing oodles of vacancies available to younger people in a range of different sectors. So it's really important that we break those myths and also support our younger people from our more disadvantaged boroughs to build their social collateral so that they do get that insight into different jobs and opportunities. So employers are absolutely key in working with the schools and colleges to give those real insights into the world of work and to provide those positive role models from diverse communities that those younger people need. So we're delighted to be working in partnership with Pendle Connects and partners on that. The Lancashire Skills Pledge is a really important part of that as well. where we're recognising employers across Lancashire who are helping to inspire, recruit and develop the people of Lancashire. So it's very much a joint endeavour, us working together to ensure that we are collectively building and growing our future workforce of tomorrow, whilst also boosting the aspirations and social mobility of our younger residents. So delighted to be here and looking forward to hearing the rest of the speakers. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you very much, Michele. I think what Michele was alluding to as well, with people actually knowing what jobs are available on their own doorsteps, is so key, because many young people might think, well, I don't want to go into manufacturing, I don't want to go into the general industries that are in Pendle, but unaware that behind the big companies there are all sorts of roles available, you know, digital roles, design roles, HR roles, legal, that kind of thing. So it's so important to actually liaise with employers and understand that. So speaking about what's available on our doorsteps, I'd like to introduce Dean Langton. Dean is the Chief Executive of Pendle Borough Council and will discuss the unique opportunities and challenges within Pendle for employers, schools and those living, studying and working here. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Rachel. And first of all, I leave Pendle at the end of this month. So I want to thank you for organising these Pendle Connects events. I think we started working together on this a few years ago with a view to creating a networking capability within Pendle. I think that's worked incredibly well. So thank you to you for doing that. You've asked me about challenges and opportunities. I've probably linked those, split those into two bits for each of those. So in terms of challenges, I think it's been alluded to by both Andrew and Michele. In Pendle, we need to create more jobs and we need to create more diverse range of jobs. We are predominantly a manufacturer, which is good, but the workplace is changing and people's aspirations are changing. And so fundamentally, we need in Pendle to create more jobs and different types of jobs. And for that, we need people with the right skills. And I wanted to use a real life example of what this means to a place like Pendle. So you'll all be aware of cottages.com. I think if you've stayed in England at any point in time and booked a holiday cottage, you'll have booked it through cottages.com. They left Pendle last year. The catalyst for that was the pandemic. They realised that they didn't need everybody in the office and they could work at home, but they did have 2 sites and they had a choice to make about which of the sites they wanted to keep going. And they chose a site elsewhere. And one of the reasons for doing that was that they couldn't recruit the right people with the right skills in Pendle. And I think, again, Michele's alluded to this, it's around digital skills and that ability to develop that workforce that's digitally capable. And it was quite clear from what Cottages were saying that they didn't have that ability here to recruit the people with the right skills to do the jobs. And given that their work is predominantly online, they needed that range of skills and they weren't able to get that. And so we have that challenge of trying to create a workforce that is appropriately skilled for the jobs that we want to create in the future. And that's incredibly hard, I think. In terms of opportunities, because I do want to focus on opportunities because there are those that exist, and Andrew would be familiar with this. The Nelson Town deal. Nelson has gone through a difficult time. It's really suffered 30 years of decline from a change in the nature of what the Pendle people are doing. So the textile industry has died and we have to reinvent that workplaces for people to go and work to. And the Nelson Town deal is, I think, a prime example of that, where we're trying to create a different set of workplaces so that people coming through education can get jobs that are fulfilling and can help them live fulfilling lives. A key part of that is creating the Digital Skills Hub in Nelson and working with Nelson and Cone College. We have one of the best colleges in the country in Pendle, and I know Nelson and Cone College shout about that. I'm not sure that we shout about it enough, to be honest, but we want to work with them to create a location where people coming through can get the right skills and we can provide the work for, you know, the businesses in our community with those appropriately skilled people to do those well-paying jobs so that they stay here and work here and enjoy the time here. And equally, Andrew, I think, mentioned the levelling up agenda. This is a prime opportunity for a place like Pendle. Pendle's been chosen as a tier 1 place for investment, and we've recently submitted our first bid to the Levelling Up Fund to try to get investment into Pendle. And this is a recognition that certain places have been left behind. And I think the government, rightly so, have recognised that and want to bring those places and help those places get ahead and create the kinds of work that are going to be there for people to do and for them to invest in the economy. I think from my perspective, it needs to be more about less about shiny new things and more about sustainable funding. We know there are gaps in educational outcomes in Pendle, and we need to do something to lessen that gap. And so levelling up needs to be about levelling up the opportunities that people coming through schools have in the future. And I think the last comment in terms of opportunities, and Michele mentioned this about role models. One of the critical aspects of what we need to be doing is raising aspirations within our community. So the England team, they're in the final on Sunday evening, and every kid will want to be a footballer as a consequence of that when they see that. And unfortunately, we all know that it's only the top 0.5% in the country will ever be a footballer. What we need to do, though, is provide other role models in other sectors to be the ones that say, look, you can do this as well. You're as good as that. And Stephenson's on here from Daisy. And there you go. We have a prime example of a chap born in Pendle who started in his garage and has built up Daisy Communications to be £1 billion business. Now, if that's not a role model that kids in schools can look up to, and we say, look at that, that's what you can do, and you can be better as a consequence of that, and you can get the rewards of that, and Pendle as a place can get the rewards of that, then we're doing something wrong. So it's about having those people who children can look up to, that can tell their stories, that give them the opportunities that they too will aspire to that kind of success. And I think as a consequence of that, if that comes through, then Pendle will be a successful place. Thank you, Rachel. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dean. As Dean mentioned, it's so important that we harness the funding, which hopefully will be sustainable, to raise aspirations across the region. Historically, maybe we said Pendle has been a bit of a disadvantage with the lack of different businesses, but if we invest into getting those businesses, attracting those businesses, then there'll be so many more opportunities for the young people. And as Dean has mentioned, and Andrew as well, Nelson and Con College, obviously one of the top colleges in the country. It's fantastic to have them here in Pendle. We have Morag Davis with us this morning. Morag is the Assistant Principal for Technical Curriculum at the college. As a lead on employer engagement, Morag is going to outline the challenges brought by COVID-19, but also the resulting opportunities and how virtual employer engagement can be embraced moving forwards. Thank you, Morag.
Thank you, Rachel. It's such a shame we couldn't host everyone today in college. So you could see all our facilities and especially our new T-level areas. As Andrew and Michele have already said, you know, the T-level is a gold standard in technical education, in getting young people ready for real work and those higher level technical careers. So maybe next time. So cast your minds back to the 18th of March 2020, and I was in a meeting with my SLT colleagues. And we were sitting there wondering how we were going to continue providing support and learning to our students for the couple of weeks that lockdown would take until we had this COVID thing licked. Anyway, 5 days later, we became an online college. And with the help of Microsoft Teams, we took the organisation online. Over the following weeks and months, we rolled out about 600 laptops to students who didn't have access to IT at home, which was great. And from September, when we came back into the building with sort of perfected a fairly seamless model where self-isolating students could access lessons remotely, and even teachers were accessing lessons remotely. So teachers who were self-isolating could access the classroom on Teams and continue to teach their students. You know, I remember watching a lesson where one of our hairdressing teachers was teaching from her kitchen, a video lesson, curling hair with empty toilet roll tubes, and the students were following her at home. That's the kind of innovation and creativity that our teachers are showing, and providing students with key employability skills as well. But curriculum isn't just about teaching the qualification. One of the things we say as a college is it's not about the BTEC. What we do is all about destinations and preparing learners for those next steps. And we needed to help learners to develop the knowledge and skills and behaviours they needed for the world of work, but also crucially to address the social disadvantage and the inequalities that were caused by and magnified by lockdown. So if we think of all of those learners who perhaps not only didn't have a PC at home, but didn't have access to Wi-Fi, didn't have a place to work on their own, sometimes didn't have their own bedroom with a door, or perhaps were living in a home that was very dysfunctional and chaotic. So we had to try and address those disadvantages. So we focused a lot on extracurricular, we focused on learners having opportunities to communicate with each other, to share their experiences, and also providing a huge amount of information and training about safety online, because we knew that our learners were spending far more time online and now therefore were more vulnerable to things like radicalisation and sexual abuse online. And crucially, one of the key things was to engage our employers, and our students couldn't go out into the workplace, so we tried to bring the workplace to them. And it was a challenge because so many employers were struggling, lots of employers were working 100% from home, but we developed a rich seam of employers who did engage with us, and who provided us with wonderful experiences to enrich the learners' time during lockdown especially. So a couple of examples, our T-level students benefited from a relationship we have with LMS software, and they actually provided a series of Zoom lessons on coding for our T-level students. So they would Zoom into the lesson once a week and provide those students with really essential technical skills and knowledge that they needed, not just for their qualification, but to help them to develop their employability skills. We had employers in hair and beauty who endorsed our curriculum, and we continued a very strong relationship that we have with our local NHS trust, who provided a highly structured selection of virtual work experience placements and remote placements, which was tailored to fit with what our learners were doing in the classroom. So we did a lot of positive things during lockdown, and employers were fantastic. Obviously, some employers had extra time, and they really helped to develop our learners' skills. And employers are at the heart of everything we do. And I think through lockdown and through the pandemic, we've really developed and deepened those employer relationships. And we thank all of our employers for continuing to support and inspire young people. And I think, you know, as Michele emphasised earlier, young people are most impacted and most at risk of unemployment due to the pandemic. So those employer relationships are more important to us than ever. So I think as we end this very difficult academic year and look forward to 21-22, which hopefully is going to look slightly more normal than it has done, we need to carry forward the lessons of this very intense learning curve, and embed this new blended model of employer engagement, both to support the learners, but also to support our local and regional economy and our local and regional employers, because we need to be continuing to provide that pipeline of highly skilled young people with the aptitude, the right attitude, and the relevant technical skills that they need to be useful to our employers. And as Michele and Andrew have already alluded to, it's not necessary for all learners to go away to university to develop the skills they need. We're developing young people with the skills that they need to be able to go straight into apprenticeships and employment in the local area. And employers are playing a huge part in that. So we know that nothing prepares young people for work better than work. We look forward to working even more closely with employers in the future and supporting the talent pipeline. Hopefully the employers with us today will get in touch, if we're not already working with you, and help us to creatively and collaboratively think of ways that we can continue to do this and also support our local and regional economy. Thanks, Rachel.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Morag. As Morag mentioned and Andrew mentioned earlier, we would have been live at Nelson & Con College this morning, and we were going to run a hybrid event for everybody. So thank you, Morag, for agreeing to host us. But like I say, next time, hopefully. Such a shame, but understandable. And it's wonderful that the college and employers were still able to support students throughout with virtual support, and the hybrid model running forward will mean that employers can, like you say, innovatively collaborate with college to provide those opportunities to inspire students and help their development. So next, we're joined by Stephanie Oliver from Daisy Telecommunications. And I'd just like to say a huge thanks to Steph and Alex for controlling our live feed for us this morning and bringing this event to life. So Stephanie is the Chief Executive of Daisy Corporate Services, and headquarters, as Dean mentioned, is based in Nelson. They work closely with Nelson & Con College already. Stephanie will discuss the huge benefits for employers of engaging with education, including making school and college leavers aware of roles available, and how going forward we can ensure that students have the right skills for Daisy and are employable immediately. So thank you very much, Stephanie.
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, everybody. So we employ around 500 people in the Pendle area. We do have employees all over the country, but most of our employees are based in Pendle. And we implemented a policy a couple of years ago for every third person that we employ, it needs to be an apprentice or a graduate for us to get more young people into our business. I've really enjoyed listening to the other speakers because everything everybody said is really close to our hearts, as well as Andrew said before. Highways England for the HS2, they want to bring in lots of apprentices for the same reasons we do, for new perspectives, for a pipeline of talent, and bringing transformational change into the sector. And that's relevant for all sectors, not just our sector, but it is particularly pertinent when you're an IT and a telecoms business and you're always looking forward in a very rapidly evolving industry. We need fresh perspectives, new innovation. We're always changing, we're always looking forward, and we need to get young people into our business to help us with that. The fresh ideas of youth are generally pretty good ones. So we are very heavily focused on the apprentice side of things. We've got somebody dedicated to doing that for us now and working really closely with the local educators and Nelson & Con College, which I'll touch a little bit on shortly. I just wanted to talk about a couple of the other things that the previous presenters said there. I loved it that Andrew said, I've made some notes, so I'm just referring to my notes now, scribbling them down earlier. There's a mistaken view that a degree is the answer to a good job and a good career, and I think that is huge. And that's one of the messages we're trying to get out to everybody. And it's really personal to me. I joined Daisy in an entry-level position as a customer service agent, and I've worked my way up and I'm now CEO. My chief operational officer is one of the most intelligent and technically astute people I've ever met, also doesn't have a degree. she started her career as an engineering apprentice, and in her words, it was because she can't sit an exam. But she's absolutely fantastic and very technically astute. And both of us, we have taken courses and got qualifications, but as we've been working during our careers, and we've worked our way up from the bottom, and that's something that's really important to us at Daisy. We always try and promote from within, and we try and have a career path for everybody in every division, no matter what that may be. And career paths don't always mean going up into management as well, especially when you're in a technology industry. If you go into an engineering role, your career progression is more deeper along the engineering path and into a more technically detailed role. I'm not a very technical person, although I run a technology company, so I can't think of the right words for it. But there's a variety of different career paths, and it doesn't always have to be in management. And I think that's important for children to understand that there's different options, and you can also move sort of sideways and diagonally in a business or an industry. It's not always just about management and managing people. Now, Michele spoke as well about the digital workforce. We do, of course, have a requirement for people to have digital skills and technical skills. We're a technology company, but I also think it's important for people to understand there's a lot of misconceptions about a business such as ours. We might provide IT and telecom services, and we might provide technical solutions to our customers, but the majority of the people in our business work in a customer service role or a sales role or in finance or in operations. I've got 500 people in operations, a couple of hundred people in customer service, a couple of hundred people in finance, and the most requests we get for work experiences in IT. But actually our IT team is the smallest team in the entire business. So there are a lot of misconceptions out there about what business really is and what industry really is and what the technology industry really is and what roles there are. And just because we're in the technology industry doesn't mean to say that you really need to be passionate about technology to work in our industry. What I really need from people is people who are good with people. If you're a human who can interact well with other humans and solve problems, then I need you to come and work for me. That's really important for me. And this is where we're missing some of the skills as well. There's quite a big gap we find when we're taking on apprentices and graduates. It's the in-between. A lot of employees are asking for work experience, but nobody's providing the work experience. So we do work experience sessions for people over the summer, so they can come in and spend some time in our business and learn a little bit more about the business. We encourage all of our employees to sign up as STEM ambassadors to go into schools and talk about what our business is really about. As Dean was mentioning before, we need real life role models. Kids really need that. And I love going to speak to kids in year 6. I find they're the sweet spot. And my favourite thing is going in and going, oh, what do you all want to do when you grow up? And everyone goes, I want to be a gamer, I want to be a YouTuber. And if I can leave that where a couple of them have gone, well, actually, I could have a career in engineering and I don't need to go to university for that. I could go and do this apprenticeship scheme. Then, you know, that's a win for me. And we try and encourage all our employees to do that. Anybody can be a real life role model. And it's just great for kids to see that no matter who you are and what you want to do, there will be some sort of career for you somewhere. It just might be that you don't know about it yet. And the big thing for me that I try and get across to the kids is not everybody knows what they want to do. I've never known what I wanted to do, and that is the case, and that is why a lot of kids say, oh, YouTuber gamer, because I don't really know what I want to do, and that's fine. But most people will then end up falling into a job. You fall into a role, like I did in customer service. I fell into a role in business, but wouldn't it be nice to come prepared for that role? So I'll give an example of myself as well. It wasn't at Daisy, but my first customer service job, I had to be told by my manager, embarrassingly, that I should sound like I was cheerful when I was answering the phone. So obviously I was just a sullen teenager going, hello, what do you want? So my manager had to sit me down and go, put a smile on your face and this is how you talk to people. And then they had to teach me how to deal with problem customers and how to be resilient and how to solve problems and interact. So if we can give people those skills before they come to the workforce, they're going to hit the ground running. And most of our entry-level roles are perfect for the people that Michele was speaking about, the 18 to 24-year-olds, unemployed. We have got loads of entry-level roles that would be perfect for these people. If you give me 5 minutes talking to you, I can find the right job for you in my business, because there is a job for everybody in a large business. If you are an outgoing, positive person who really likes chatting to people and finding a win-win situation, you'll be great in sales. If you're organised and diligent and like ticking off lists, then you'll probably be good in project management. If you're like me and like helping solve other people's problems for them, then you might be great in customer service. And all those roles are available in an entry-level position now. So if we can enable the kids of today with the right skills to be able to hit the ground running in those entry-level positions, where we've also got apprenticeship roles and career paths, then it's the right thing to do, isn't it? So we are working with Nelson Cone College. We're doing one of the courses where you get digital skills, but we're also bringing these other skills into it. It really is just basic people skills are still so important in the modern world. And of course, kids live in the phones, don't they? So we do sometimes just need to get them away from the phones and put them in front of a face. And even just a bit of role play, they find it really awkward, but it's the things that you've got to learn, because at some point you're going to be dealing with the customer in whatever job you do, whether it's an internal customer, an external customer. Everybody's got to learn how to deal and interact with real human beings, and it is still so important. So some of the other things we've been doing to interact with local educators, we're signed up to do some interviews for Park High School in Colne. We've done some careers guidance videos for Blackburn and Bowling High, and we've set up an enthused partnership with the Sacred Heart in Crawdon, sorry, not in Colne. But as we said before, we're always open for suggestions. Everybody can do more. So if there is any ideas that anybody's got or anything extra that you think we could do, then please do get in touch and let us know. I am overrunning as usual, so I'm going to hand back to Rachel now. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Steph. You can tell how passionate you are about the business. It's interesting as well to hear you say about that it's not just the certified skills that you're looking for and you've got a shortage in, because people buy people, and people are so important in the business, and people can deal with people, like you said, think on their feet and solve problems. So it's incredibly important that the employer engagement is there to give these children, the students, life skills, and give them the positive role models that everybody's mentioned so far. So speaking about positive role models, Ben Rhodes is an enterprise advisor. He's also our next guest speaker and managing director of Tailor Made Sourcing, a specialist recruitment agency that grew up from Colne. As the head of the agency, Ben's got a bird's eye view of the skill shortages across sectors that the market is currently experiencing, which he's going to share with us. And he'll also outline the personal benefits of being an enterprise advisor. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for everybody for having me today. It's really interesting, actually. I didn't realise how much I was going to get out of hearing everybody else speak, but I was particularly interested in what Michele was saying about the percentages and the amount of people who are not working at this moment in time, looking for work. Because as an agency, we supply, we've always been Pendle based. We've been in Pendle for the last 16 years, and we are busier than we've ever been recruiting for some of the largest manufacturing distribution companies in the area. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what's going on for us as a recruiter, because if you're a job seeker and if you're looking for a career, there's some fantastic opportunities out there. So the pressures that we currently have as a recruitment company is basically we're inundated with vacancies. So we have, as of last week, 84 vacancies across 40 different companies. As a recruitment company, you work, there's two ways to find people jobs. There's a temporary to permanent, so they go and approach us for temporary work. At the end of a period of employment, they then get offered a permanent job with the relevant company, if they've worked hard and proved themselves. And we're working on 84 vacancies as of last week, which is busier than we've ever been in Pendle. We've also have a permanent route to employment, which is effectively clients ask us to source candidates. Those candidates, various different skill sets, but tend to be more commercially and skilled engineering roles. And they're currently working on 20 permanent vacancies. It's fantastic that we're so busy because it shows that Pendle as an area is going through a rapid period of employment and growth. The concerning thing, I suppose, for us as a business is the availability of people to fill those roles. I think it's due to a number of pressures. I think migration and some of the jobs that would historically be filled by people who were originally born outside the UK. There's additional pressures on those sort of areas. I think COVID and the furlough scheme, which is, I think it's been fantastic for the economy. I think there's now an element of people who are still sat on furlough scheme, not knowing what to do, how to handle the situation. I think there's people who are worried about self-isolation and if they're working or they live in families as vulnerable people, rightly so, that they don't know how to handle it really. I think there's also an additional amount of pressure on secondary suppliers. So a lot of the companies we work with are the end users, the big companies. Now, when they get particularly busy or inundated with business, then they look to outsource different parts of the work to secondary suppliers. And those secondary suppliers, in many cases, have mounting pressure on them to get to fulfill their area of the supply chain to our businesses. So what's happening? People are paying more. Candidates, it's becoming a candidate driven market, which means that if you're out there and you're looking for work, you can generally earn really good money. There was the introduction of the living wage, and there's also a various different tiered structure for younger people, and that resulted in lower pay. What we're seeing now right the way across the board really is companies actually going, we're going to pay the living wage to everybody regardless of age. So that's fantastic for young people who want to earn money and have opportunity to earn money. What would be my advice as somebody who recruits or employs people for businesses? I really suggest that if you're out there and you're giving thought to what you want to do, work experience is going to be one of the things that really stands you head and shoulders above other people. You might be an academic, you might not be an academic, you might be practical, you might want to go into engineering, you might want to go into customer service, you might want to go into management, but the commitment to doing some work to demonstrate you can hold down a job, have a reference on somebody you've worked for, and having somebody who you have historically worked for who goes, do you know what, Sophie or Tom or whoever it is did a really good job for us, no problems at all in recommending them working for your business. That's a really big feather in your cap, and as a recruiter, finding somebody, if you've got those credentials behind you, it's a really big selling point. It's a really big tick for that individual. Just to give you a bit more of an insight, TaylorMade has filled over 30,000 jobs across 200 companies in the last 16 years. I'm just going to go back again to how many jobs are out there. It's a fantastic opportunity for anybody to gain work experience, to maybe you're going to take a year out, maybe you're going to go straight to university, maybe you don't know what you want to do, maybe you just want a summer job. But what we are not seeing at this moment in time is the difficulty in people finding a job in Pendle area at this moment in time. Hope that's all right, Rachel. I've gone under my time. Is that all right? How many minutes have we got left? Yeah, all right, good.
Thanks very much, Ben. That's brilliant. It's interesting to get the view of a recruiter. Ben, you didn't really mention being an enterprise advisor. So could you tell us a little about the work you've kind of done in schools and how it's been received and what it gives to you?
Of course I can. I was an enterprise advisor for Park School, which is a fantastic school. So what I did was I spent time with the young people of the school discussing everything from interview techniques to how to present themselves to what an employer or an interviewer might be looking for. And I was received really, really well, both by the school and the young people within that school. And I suppose the thing that really surprised me was at that particular school, how many of those young individuals had given up time both for volunteering for things like sports clubs and to add sort of clout and weft to their CVs when they were looking for jobs, and then also the amount of people who were currently working alongside their curriculum and their school education. So I think in one particular class, I think there was about 27 pupils in that class, and I think well over 20 people put their hand up to say that they were currently working or doing jobs alongside their education. And I think that really will make a big difference for those individuals, because it's not just necessarily having that on your CV to say that you've done it, but it's also the skills that come alongside being able to work, whether or not being in a cafe, you're dealing with people who you might be serving, you're learning customer service skills, you're learning how to use tills and technology and things like that, all the way through to, I think one young man was a rugby coach, and he was a big lad, to be fair, but he was saying that you deal with parents afterwards and say, why little Jimmy not being picked for the team and things like that. So there's just two jobs there, very different, whether you're working in a cafe or you're a rugby coach, where those individuals are picking up additional life skills, additional confidences, and that will stand them in really good stead when they go and both be interviewed for jobs and try and find a job.
Brilliant, thanks very much, Ben. It's interesting, isn't it? When as an employer, as a recruiter, when you get CVs through, you want to see that extracurricular stuff. You know, you want to see that the candidates have those interpersonal skills, as we mentioned earlier, because they're so important. Next, I'd like to introduce Philip Hayworth, who also does a lot of work in schools. Phil is the Managing Director of JD Engineering. He's a long-time STEM, or STEAM as it is now, ambassador and a school governor. Phil will discuss, among other things, the importance of employer engagement with primary school children, how this can raise aspirations, inspire children's life and career choices, and really help them to shine. Thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Rachel. Good morning, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today to talk at the Pendle Education Summit. I'm very cognizant of time, so I'll try to be a little bit more brief than I have prepared, but I'm more than happy to field any questions at the end. As Rachel said, I'm Phil Hayworth, and I'm the Managing Director of JD Engineering based in Colne. As well as this being an education summit, I'll tell you the other roles that I hold as well. So I am also the Chair of Governors at Borough Primary School, and also a governor at Pendle College, just down the road from me currently in Nelson. I think it's probably pertinent to give a little bit of background as to why I support education and have the education bias that I do. Growing up, my father was a college and FE lecturer in engineering for over 20 years. My mother was a TA at the local primary school, and my sister ended up, she's 7 years older than me, and she ended up disappearing off to Edge Hill University to study to become a teacher. So I've been around a lot of people within my life that have some sort of teaching background. And as a child, unfortunately, I spent many a free hour during the holidays supporting my mum, cutting out bubble letters and stapling backing paper onto boards to create wonderful displays for children in her school. And even up to the age of 20, I was going to Patterdale supporting that school on outward bound activities and looking after the children in groups. So yeah, there's an awful lot of education that I've grown up with through my life, and then ended up getting married to somebody who also works in schools as well. So it's been a heavy thread throughout my life as education. But as part of what we do at JD Engineering, apart from the engineering, obviously, we took it upon ourselves to visit schools, mainly primary, to promote STEAM related careers. STEAM, if nobody knows, is science, technology, engineering, the arts and mathematics. Being a time-served engineer and having been an apprentice at Rolls-Royce in Barnoldswick, I have a passion for all things engineering and believe that the capability within our schools, the capacity in our local area to field the jobs, and the desire and drive as a borough to reduce the skills gap the industry faces. And we also have the drive to try and get rid of the negative perception that the industry has. One of the main things that we picked up on very, very early was we were dealing primarily with year 5 and 6 at primary level. The negative perception that engineering and manufacturing has, it's seen as a dirty and boring industry, something that nobody actually wants to move into when they're leaving high school. So we had to do a lot of work on trying to eradicate that negative perception, and that's still there, and it's still a big job of work for us to do today. But I love the apprenticeship system. Like I say, I've been an apprentice. I am an apprentice again, currently studying an MBA for UCLan. I totally believe in the apprenticeship system, and probably more so now than ever, with it being more employer driven, as Michele and Andrew alluded to earlier on. Being an employer driven and being really, really relevant to the roles that young people are going to undertake. But another thing that was that Dean mentioned that I picked up on as well very, very early in our school visiting days was, especially locally, it's more than trying to do what we do for engineering. We had a lot of work to do to just raise general aspiration. And that's where I think employers can come in and really support schools. There's an element of drive and passion that can't be taught about your job role, that teachers definitely can't get across, that you definitely and surely can do for young people. And alongside the passion and drive that you have, I also believe that all business leaders have a responsibility to turn around occasionally and look at the next generation, because some of these children that are coming out of schools will be your employees of the future. Some will be suppliers or customers of companies that you work with. And hopefully that you'll have actually inspired some enough that there'll be direct competition for you. We also noticed that the work that went on through other careers providers was focused heavily on secondary and college students. A lot from year 9+ when you start taking your choices. We also, obviously being a school governor at Borough, we realised that some children need igniting way before that. They need that seed of inspiration. Year 5 and 6, when they're sponges, when they want to learn, when the ability to do things and learn things new and to go away and research is at an earlier age. So that's why we primarily focus on our STEAM education provision at year 5 and 6, and we hope that we open children's eyes and change children's lives for the better. I'm not one for stats, but I'm going to throw this one in because I think it's incredibly relevant today. The job of work teachers have to do. The World Economic Forum is estimated that 65% of children entering schools today will be employed in a job that currently doesn't exist. So I can hear some of you out there probably saying, so what's the point in going and telling them about my role? Well, it's probably twofold really for me. It's to teach those soft skills that are required to succeed and that have made you successful. And it's to make sure that the industry that you serve and that has served you so well continues to flourish and grow. But there are many other ways to support schools and collaborate. Get involved as a governor, get involved on the PTFA, provide schools with your unique skill set, the business experience that you have, the contacts and the networks that you could provide is potentially invaluable. Being involved is also great for your company CSR, but it does need to be more than a tick in the box. I always remember I've been a governor now for nearly 7 years, I think. The next speaker will either confirm or deny that, but I think it's about 7 years. And I remember the chair of governors at the time saying to me, it's as much effort as you want to put in. And I think it's got to be 100% effort, otherwise you're doing yourself and the school a disservice. And amongst all this, I think there's an argument as well to talk about education reform and rebuilding a system that was fundamentally designed to sort academics from the more manual workers. But I'm going to leave that one because that's far above my pay grade. And I think there's the next speaker may know a lot more than that than I do. So on that note, I'm going to pass you back to Rachel. Thanks for your time this morning. If there's anything else that you want me to cover, please just pop a question in the Q&A. Thanks, Rachel.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Phil. It's interesting to hear the bad rep that manufacturing and engineering gets, and I'm glad everybody's working on turning that around as well. It's also great that, you know, you're never too old to stop learning as well. You know, you're taking the MBA, that's a level 7 apprenticeship, isn't it? And how important it is. I mean, if we generally, I think if we as employers think about business engagement with schools, you're thinking the schools, secondary schools, you're thinking colleges. So it's important as well to think about focusing on getting involved with your local primary school and the differences you can really make there. So thank you very much indeed. So speaking of local primary schools, our next guest is Rachel Tomlinson. Rachel is the head teacher at Borough Primary School, and Rachel has joined us to share just how important employer engagement is to her pupils and what it can do to help them. Thank you, Rachel.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. I've scribbled loads of notes this morning. The most important one is that I didn't know Phil could do backing and cutting out letters, so I'll be distributing that info to the rest of our staff. Today will be really busy over the summer. Thanks for inviting me today, and really just talk about just some of the things that we do and build upon some of the things that Phil said. I'm not going to talk about how long he's been a governor, because I can't remember, but you know, that is a really important role that he plays for our school, and it's something that I would encourage business leaders to get involved in, to be, you know, governors at local schools, because we do need that. That's kind of like right at the end of my my bit of notes, Phil, so it is a really crucial thing. So at Borough Primary School, we are a community of change makers. That's kind of what we want to do. We want to create children, equip our children with the skills and knowledge and confidence they need to be articulate, compassionate, knowledgeable and responsible human beings who feel like and know they have the agency to change their world and the world for the better in terms of social justice and social action. And I know one or two people have referenced that idea of social mobility, and I think for me the idea of social mobility is staying where you were brought up and staying in the local community and making that a better place for everybody to be, rather than moving outside of that. So as a result of that, really, we build our curriculum on 4 pillars, and we have a fairly unusual curriculum here at Borough, but I think we've done lots of thinking and research into what our children are going to need, and I talk about good humaning. So we want to create good humans who will go out and into the world and do good humaning. And I think one of Phil's referenced the World Economic Forum, and it's interesting that, you know, our new children who will start with us in September will be entering the job market potentially in 13 years time, maybe a little bit longer, past the 2030 deadline that I'm going to talk about in a minute, and they'll potentially still be working into the next century. So it's really important that we think about what they're going to need to be able to compete in the market. And I think one of the things that we need to really think about is the fact that, you know, on the level where we're talking about the, you know, really enhanced artificial intelligence and all of those things, that actually we can't compete with some of the technology, but we have the human characteristics that we really need to concentrate on, and we really need to make sure that our children feel really confident about what separates them from technology and what are the characteristics that they that separates us from technology. So our curriculum is built upon 4 pillars. We talk about the 4 pillars all the time. The first of those pillars is the national curriculum. We're a maintained primary school. It's the law to follow the national curriculum, and actually there's no good reason not to. It's a perfectly good curriculum. The second of those pillars is something that's fairly bespoke to our schools, and it's our school, and it's something we call Rounded and Grounded, and it kind of details the skills and capacities and dispositions we want to kind of instill and embed in our children and our adults, so that they can become those good humans that I've talked about already. The third pillar are the sustainable development goals. So the UN Sustainable Development Goals, so those of you who don't know what they are, and I hope everybody does, but they're a set of goals that the UN have set out. And I think Ban Ki-moon, who was the Director General of the UN, said to us, there is no plan B because there is no planet B. And that's something that we kind of really embed through our curriculum. And you know, we've got this increasing sense of urgency about those Sustainable Development Goals. And then the fourth pillar of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. It's really important for us that our children know how to keep themselves safe and how to keep other people safe, and what their rights are and what their responsibilities are, more to the point as well. So using all those kind of four pillars to create a platform, our incredible staff design questions and curriculum models that encompass kind of all of those things. And we use a model of project-based learning in our school, and we use something called Mantle of the Expert to follow those projects through. And Mantle of the Expert in particular puts children in the role of expert in any situation. So I'll just give you a couple of examples of that. Our year twos currently, their question, and bearing in mind that lots of people have referenced the pandemic and lots of different things. Our year twos are currently looking at, somebody just delivered me a brew, that's really good humaning. Our year twos are currently looking at sustainable energy, and we've created this fictional world for our year twos, and they've been commissioned as 6 and 7 year olds by an energy company to investigate sustainable energy sources. And through their curriculum and through all the research that they've done, supported by, you know, really capable teaching staff, that our year two's recommendation to their energy company was to build a wind farm off the coast of Blackpool, because we're keeping it really local. And so the energy company thought that was an amazing idea and asked them to design it, and they cracked on with that. But then they received a letter from a homeowner who had spent her retirement money, her lump sum on her dream house near the coast, and she was really stressed about her view being ruined by this wind farm that they were designing. And at the same time, they got an email from a marine wildlife group to say that they were really concerned about the impact of the turbines on marine wildlife. So it kind of created this real life scenario where the children were the roles of experts. So they're all taking on different roles to work through their dilemmas in terms of public relations and planning and working with residents. And you know, we've got a group of oceanographers thinking about wildlife and that impact, and that's all happening in our year two classroom. And I'm really interested, Ben, I wish we'd have done this 8 weeks ago, because I'd have been recruiting you from your recruitment company, because our year six project is about, they're thinking about how we give people the skills they need for the jobs of the future. You know, our year six is a 10 and 11, and you know, lots of you have referenced that's the sweet spot, and it absolutely is. Those children are really, you know, they really have their eye on the ball, and you know, they really want to understand the world and want to influence the people around them. But so as part of our year six project, in this fictional world that we create for our children as experts, they received some letters from 2 children asking them to find jobs. And when they dug deeper into that, these were very young children, and when our year six children interviewed them to find out why they wanted jobs, it was because their parents had lost the jobs. The jobs that their parents were doing had become obsolete, and you know, they were really struggling in terms of poverty and as a family. So the children, you know, the only solution these children could find was to find jobs themselves. So our year sixes have set up a recruitment agency, an employment agency, looking at all the different aspects of employment and recruitment, and you know, what's out there in terms of the world of work, and in terms of looking with an eye to the future in terms of sustainability. And you know, they've been building CVs, they've been looking at interviews from all angles, they've been writing application letters, researching the jobs market, all of those things, just so to help these 2 fictional children find jobs for their parents. So, you know, and there are 2 examples. We've got 7 year groups. So there's 2 examples of the projects that are just going on this term. So those, you know, those things are a really dynamic process, and we kind of try and make sure that they're really contextual. The projects are really contextual, they're really in the moment, and you know, they're really relevant to our children. So we have these fictional worlds that we create and we cast our children as experts in, but actually we need real experts to support that learning. Teachers are teachers, and we have the curriculum knowledge, we understand, you know, pedagogical knowledge in order to support our children through that process of learning. But we have educational knowledge, and many of our teachers have been teachers all their lives. In some senses, they've never left school. We don't have the expertise outside our field of education. So, you know, it's really important to us for us to be able to recruit, but to approach different experts in different fields of industry to really support our children to understand what that feels like and looks like as someone who works in those industries and businesses. And the more real life that we can make our curriculum, the better. You know, the better for future employees, the better for our children, and actually the better for our world. So, you know, and you know, the other aspect of that coin is I've talked already about sustainability, and the fact that we really need to be having an eye on the future and you know, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and our children are really passionate about that. This is the world that they're going to inherit. So, you know, they come up with really, you know, as very young people, come up with really innovative ideas and solutions. So actually, you know, there are lots of local companies who could use our children and would find vast reservoirs of of innovation and ideas from our children to solve actual problems, you know, as well as the problems that we're inventing. So really, from our perspective, that intervention from business is incredibly powerful. We also have I'll be 2 minutes, Rachel. Thank you for letting me know. We also have to be able to exhibit our learning. So usually when it's, you know, non-COVID times, we have open evenings, exhibition evenings, and it'd be really great for our children if employees, if local businesses, if local employees would attend those to kind of see, almost talent spot at a really early age, but to really support that learning. And you know, we're also as a school engaging with organisations focused on that sustainability agenda, like Eden North and Carbon Zero. Lego as a massive organisation really focusing on sustainability, and there's a coalition that we're in called Future Proof Ed, working together to make sure that we actually have a world for our children to work in, because you know, GCSEs and degrees are all well and good, but if the world's you know, imploding from within, then we're nowhere. And the last thing to say is just to really support that apprenticeship model. Our staff really model good learning to our children, and you know, we support our staff. We have a number of staff constantly going through that apprenticeship model through the levy as well, just as modelling for our children. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm done.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rachel. It's absolutely fascinating. We've got a presenters chat box here on this MS Teams. It's going mad with people going, good humaning, love it. And it's just amazing the amount of things you're getting the kids involved in and how that is going to help their progression and then develop personally. So that's absolutely amazing. And as Rachel said, and as everybody has said, people need, you know, these children need employers, they need the role models to get involved, they need the experts to share that expertise with them. So speaking of expertise, we're now joined by another Rachel, so that's 3 of us on the call. Rachel Green is the Education, Engagement and Development Manager at the Careers and Enterprise Company. And as the lead on Ofsted there, Rachel's going to be reflecting on the DFE white paper implications that was mentioned by Michele earlier. I'm looking ahead to Ofsted's review. So Ofsted are pushing that careers education needs to form a central part of every student's entitlement. So thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much, and no pressure following that, Rachel. I'm afraid my talk is slightly less engaging in that sense. Yours was so fantastic. So, and I've got slides too, because I don't like being centre stage, so hopefully it will shrink me down to a very small icon. So hopefully you can see those slides okay. As Rachel said, my role is a central role with the Careers and Enterprise Company, and really I want to talk to you today about why careers education is so important and what the purpose of it is. I think actually it's already been demonstrated very ably by everyone who's spoken to today, but from our perspective, our mission at the Careers and Enterprise Company is to help every young person really find their best next step. But I think it's really important that whether we're business leaders, school or college leaders, we really need to consider that the best next step is not the same for every student. And we really need to make sure that what we're delivering for young people really does meet the need of each and every young person. Now, there was a white paper that came out back in January of this year, and it talks about the importance of embedding into the life of every school and college this careers education. And it really stressed the importance of business engagement in shaping that and in shaping the curriculum as we go forward. The new statutory guidance, which we're expecting any day now, speaks of the need for every school and college to have a member of their governing body who takes a strategic interest in careers education and guidance. And that's another stress of how important the Department for Education see this at the moment. There's also going to be later on this year, we're expecting it to happen over the course of this year, an Ofsted thematic review into careers education, where Ofsted are really going to be looking at what's happening in schools and colleges across the country and trying to pull together all of the best examples to share in the future about good practice. So why is it top of everyone's agenda? Why is careers education so important at the moment? Well, essentially, as we've seen and heard today, because it makes a difference. There's a report, it's a catchy title, but there's a report out recently in June entitled The Benefits of Gatsby Benchmark Achievement for Post-16 Destinations. I told you it was catchy. And this really has explored the impact of increased achievement of the benchmarks on levels of EAT students. So that's students who are in education, employment or training for a sustained period after they leave in year 11. And you'll receive these slides afterwards, I hope, where you can look at these statistics in more detail or indeed read the report yourself. But essentially, this research clearly demonstrates that when schools and colleges are achieving well against the benchmarks, providing that high quality careers provision for each and every young person, it has a significant impact on young people's future success. For every benchmark that a school achieves, we see a 1.4% decline in the number of students who are not in employment or training when they leave. And that impact is doubled in the most disadvantaged schools. And so that sort of equates to if a school is achieving all 8 benchmarks in a disadvantaged area, they're seeing a decline of 20% in NEET's figures, which is a significant number and really shows the impact that employer engagement and career education can have. But we do need to approach all of this with caution, and apologies if you're looking at this on a phone, but it is meant to be confusing. It's an infographic from a hub lead in the Northeast, and it really shows the wide scope of roles and responsibilities that a careers leader has, particularly if they're in a strategic leadership role within a school or college. And when you see it in this way, it's really easy to appreciate the challenges that are faced by careers leaders across the country. And it's important for education leaders to really consider how much time and resource a careers leader is being given. Our research shows that the role looks incredibly different across different settings. From people who are more operational and administrative level, perhaps with a full-time role, right through to someone who's maybe on the senior leadership team who perhaps has 2 hours a fortnight to look at this. And I think if we appreciate how important this is for our young people's futures, we need to be making sure that we are enabling careers leaders to make those differences. Our research has shown that the key challenges that careers leaders face include, shockingly, time, resource, but for me, most importantly, engagement from the head teacher or principal. Careers leaders really do need to be enabled if they're to have the impact that's required. And that's about them being in a strong enough strategic position within a setting with appropriate support from those who are, if they're not on that senior leadership team. And they need support to ensure that careers related learning is fully embedded in the curriculum and that it sits firmly within the whole school or college vision with engagement from head teachers or principals. And that's what Ofsted are really interested in. Now, as I mentioned, there's the imminent publication of the new statutory guidance, and this combines all the information for schools and colleges into one resource. There's no significant change to careers legislation at the moment. The associated duties continue to rest with schools and colleges, but I would like to just draw your attention to a couple of things on this slide, and that's the prominence of the Baker Clause and the emphasis on no favourable routes, and that sort of real push on technical education routes. And this is something that every school and college really needs to be aware of. We need to be making sure that we are encouraging and enabling all young people to understand all of the options that are open to them. And that's what's been so great hearing the employers speaking this morning about the importance of that apprenticeship route, the importance of the technical and vocational qualifications, as well as your more traditional routes. And I think that's where Rachel mentioned that, you know, most of those people that work in schools have never really left school, and we don't always have in that position the full gamut of knowledge that we need to be able to equip young people to make informed decisions. And that's why the employer voice is so very, very important. The statutory guidance also strengthens the role of governors. There's a brand new section where it's encouraging schools and colleges to make sure that they have this strategically interested governor who can really push forward this and challenge school leaders, college leaders, if this isn't a central part of what's being provided for each and every young person. So it's incredibly high status at the moment, incredibly high interest, and reflected in that is the Ofsted thematic review coming up later in the year. So I just want to draw your attention to this slide, which has the 5 key features which are evidenced as having the most impact on a school or college careers plan. I appreciate the text is quite small on here, so as I say, hopefully you will receive these afterwards. But aligning the careers strategy to really help support the delivery of whole school or college priorities, and hopefully aligning with local economic plans is really what makes a careers programme impactful. And I cannot stress highly enough the importance of high quality and committed leadership and management to really shape the careers programme. There are still too many examples of careers leaders who aren't sufficiently supported to carry out their role. And the most effective programmes we see are really targeted, responsive to whole cohorts, and triangulating those encounters and experiences in with the curriculum, and obviously where careers is really respected and pushed by leadership and management. As I mentioned earlier, Ofsted will be undertaking a thematic review into careers education this coming academic year. So careers is highly likely to be a high focus for Ofsted in any upcoming visits. They're particularly interested in ensuring that a setting provides that unbiased careers advice and support that highlights the full range of opportunities and pathways open to young people. And the Baker Clause and the use of information such as destinations data may well be key. Careers is not a standalone that's delivered only by the careers leader or in discrete lessons. It should really, and Ofsted want to see it, being fully embedded into the whole curriculum across departments, supporting the delivery of the strategic vision of the setting. And that the personal development of every student at the building of that cultural capital is so crucial to everyone, and we've heard about that from everyone that I've heard so far today. Ofsted will be triangulating what they hear from school and college leaders with what they see and hear from wider staff and students during their visits. So we really do need to make sure that every member of staff has an understanding of the careers learning outcomes and the role that they play in their delivery. Now, the best way I can help you to feel confident that you're meeting the varied needs of students is by equipping your careers leader. And at the CEC, we do offer fully funded training for the careers leader with a £1,000 bursary on completion that really is transformational. And investing time in this training really does impact on students. And I would encourage you, if you are a member of school or college, to sign your careers leader up for this opportunity, your earliest opportunity. Alongside this in September, there's also going to be brand new online learning modules specifically for different audiences, including careers leaders, education leaders and governors. I'll see if I can get this to move on without it playing repeatedly. There we go. To help you keep up to date, if you are an education leader or a governor, I'd encourage you to sign up for our education leader and governor digests, and the links are on the slide afterwards. Just to finish, I'm going to leave you to consider 2 quotes. The first is from Lizzie Beale, who is our newly appointed youth board member at the Careers and Enterprise Company, who essentially wants all schools and colleges to make sure that young people feel good enough and that they feel properly equipped for their futures. And the second is from one of our principals in our network. And he really strongly believes that qualifications alone are not enough. They're not the route to success for our young people, but for them to have sustained and appropriate and aspirational next steps, schools and colleges need to give careers education the profile it deserves. We would never consider hiring one part-time maths teacher to help improve maths outcomes for all students. So why do we do this with careers education? Thank you for your time.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rachel. I know we have
to work out how to stop it now. There we go.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Rachel. So it's interesting, we do have a lot of educational providers on the call as well today, and what Rachel was saying about the importance of the need for that relationship between the careers leads and between businesses. I know one of the questions we've had, which we will come on to, is, how do people build that relationship in the first place? How do they get to know about it? How can they connect with the careers leads to then provide the support to pupils and students? So before we come to the Q&A, we'll move on to our wonderful last speaker. As I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons this summit is going ahead is Inspira. Lisa Scargill has joined us today from Inspira. She's a deputy careers lead. She's going to outline the ways in which employers can support local schools and colleges, and the schemes that include the Give an Hour scheme. So, you can just pledge 1 hour of your time, the skills pledge, and the role of enterprise advisor. So thank you very much. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Good morning, everyone. And I promise that this will be a whistle-stop tour, as I am on the graveyard shift at the end this morning. So I think it's worth saying that I am currently the Deputy Careers Hub Lead for Lancashire, but my background is in education. And only 2 years ago, I was a careers leader in a local school, and I was benefiting from the support of this network, local employers. So the opportunities that I'm going to cover, I know firsthand that they really work. So the Lancashire Careers Hub supports 156 schools and colleges across the county, and our purpose, as Rachel said, is to build capacity in careers education and help every young person find their best next step, whilst also unlocking Lancashire's future talent pipeline. So hopefully I can bring together a lot of what the speakers before me have talked about this morning in a couple of calls to action. So our schools and colleges are supported by enterprise advisors, and it was great to hear Ben talking about his experience of the role earlier. And those enterprise advisors provide strategic engagement with business to one or more school or college, and they work directly with senior leaders to develop the careers programme that is being delivered within that institution. So the role is one that combines passion for raising the aspirations of young people with your strategic skills to help put opportunities with employers like yourself at the heart of a young person's education. This also is a fantastic opportunity to curate your talent pipeline too. So understandably, not everyone can volunteer as an enterprise advisor, so we also have a call to action simply named Give an Hour, which Rachel briefly mentioned, where employers can share their career journey, insights with young people in schools and colleges in the community. And if you think about Give an Hour, it feels like such a small amount of time, but if every employer in Pendle was able to give an hour, just think about the impact that that could have on our young people. So your unique industry knowledge and experience as someone who owns or works in a local business, and no matter the size, really can make a difference to the options that a young person considers for their career. So by giving an hour to take part in a careers talk, launch a business competition, or take part in mock interviews or CV workshops, you really could be the person who changes the life of another young person in the area just by showing them what is possible. And that, for me, really is impact. So both of these campaigns are a really great way to give something back to your community. And we've seen it firsthand, and I'm sure a lot of people on the call who've spoken can say that they've seen how that can ignite yourself as an enterprise advisor or Given an Hour, but also your team. Being an enterprise advisor or Given an Hour isn't just about what you can give, but it's about the networks that you can open up to your local community too. So please just think about that. It also helps give young people in your area the skills and knowledge that they need, whilst also potentially finding new recruits for your business. But you can also help play a role in shaping future leaders within your community. So I know we talked, Rachel T talked earlier about social mobility, and actually does that look like keeping your young people in your area and making them the future leaders? So to pull all of this together, we've got the Lancashire Skills Pledge, and it's a simple way to engage and be supported with these campaigns and others. Plus, being a pledge member is a widely recognised commitment to inspiring and developing the skills of people living and working in Lancashire. So I'm just going to give you a whistle-stop tour of the pledges. So Give an Hour, which I've already spoken about, and be an enterprise advisor. We've also got the opportunity for T-level industry placements, which have been discussed this morning, taking on an apprentice, becoming an apprentice ambassador, but also employing people who are out of work and providing skills support for the workforce. So that really was a whistle-stop tour of some of the ways that you can get involved in Pendle, but also around the county. And I would love to talk to people in more detail about the calls to action that we've got. And I hope that the links to take a look in a bit more detail at the opportunities will be shared, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end of the call, and hopefully see some of you at the next Lancashire Skills Pledge celebration. But I just want to finish on a simple yet powerful quote from a young person in the college that I support, because really it just sums up everything that we are trying to achieve together. And the quote is, "If I can't see it, I can't be it." So thank you, Rachel. I'll hand back over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lisa. Love that quote. If you can't see it, you can't be it. Fantastic. Lisa, don't go anywhere, because I'm going to go into Q&A now. So I'm going to come to you first with a question. And Azim has said, it's great to see all the support here for Lancashire businesses. And Lancashire has a great sort of history around engineering. His son is studying it at the moment, and they've been looking for engineering apprenticeships for the past year now. So where would you start looking? Are there any portals? You know, how would people access that?
So our Lancashire schools and colleges are really fortunate they benefit from a careers platform called Start in Lancashire. That would be the first place that I would be going to look, and that is somewhere that both students, staff, teachers, but also parents and carers can access. And I wish I could demonstrate it to you now, but I realise that we're very short on time. But you can click the engineering vocation within the platform, and it does bring up local vacancies that are available, including actual apprenticeship vacancies, but also work experience vacancies and volunteering opportunities. But it is worth really saying that within school or college, your young people should be going and finding their careers leader or their careers advisor, and having that chat, because actually they are really best placed to be giving that advice. And it just reinforces actually everything that we've all said this morning, that the more employers we can get involved with those careers leaders and key people within school, the better opportunities that our young people are going to get. Thank you, Rachel.
Super, thank you very much, Lisa. We've had a question in the Q&A for Ben, so I'll just get that up. It's just taking its time here. So Ben, you mentioned there's an influx of available roles in the Pendle area and the market is candidate driven. This is from Vicky at Training 2000. So with this in mind, are you seeing that candidates are being more selective when it comes to their next role?
Yeah, definitely. I think about 5 years ago, there was more jobs, there was more people applying for the roles than what there was actually jobs available. So there's a different set of problems there. When the market's like it is currently, we are seeing people being a bit more picky about what they want to do. There's also some people who are still on furlough scheme and they genuinely don't know whether or not they're going to be able to go back to the jobs. So that's creating a bit of uncertainty. And there's also people who've got a sort of genuine fear of what the world's like with COVID being around. So I suppose the market's uncertain, both for candidates, and then there's also pressures on businesses. What we're seeing is businesses have an order book, they've got a demand, they've got a requirement for people to come into their business and start working and start making their money. And I think Vicky raises a very good question, in as much as the candidates, there's so many different uncertainties for them that we're sort of waiting for something to happen. There's people saying, call me back in a month, you know, we're going to be keen in a month for whatever reason. But yeah, it's having a knock-on effect. The candidates are reluctant to commit, the clients are desperate for the right people to start in a business, and it's a sort of standoff type of situation. But we're hoping that things start moving with the gradual closure of the furlough scheme. I think that will start becoming a lot more candidates available in the marketplace.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Ben. We've had a comment, question comment, saying thank you, Rachel T, for making the point about primary schools needing business leaders as governors, and that Park Primary has some vacancies if anyone's interested. Also, a comment about, which would affect primary and secondary, that heads aren't always sure which local businesses would be willing to join them, to get involved with them, and who would be the best contact for them. So Phil, I'd like to come to you. So how did you get involved as a local governor, and how would you suggest that schools reach out to people and find those interested people?
I'm lucky enough to send my children to Borough School, so it was an easy link for me for that one. Otherwise, listen, you've got to, I think you've got to be in that kind of frame of mind that you want to be supporting. Just reach out to the school. Chances are you'll know a school local to you. You might have children at school. I think I came through the parent governor road first, Borough. I put myself up for election really as a parent. So it was yeah, and it's something that like I said during my time on air, it's something that you can choose to give the amount of effort. And I always remember that the conversation with the chair of governors at the time, who said, it's as hard as you want it to be this, but it honestly is a disservice if you don't put the 100% of you into it. Not only to the school, but to you as well, because you have the potential of being a governor to change lives of the children that are at that school, and to make a massive impact on their career choices going forward potentially, and the area. We want employees and employers, future employers, to be coming out of schools now and to build Pendle. So yeah, it's just contact a school. You'll have one local. You may still be connected somehow to the one that you went to as a child yourself. Just reach out, and there is and again, you might have to bring Rachel Tomlinson in for this, but I do believe you can apply on either the .gov website or DFE website, and they will put you forward to a school in your local area if they have vacancies on their governing body. Thanks, Rach.
Great, thanks, Phil. And obviously, as Lisa said earlier, from a business perspective, if you contact Inspire, we'll send all the links out that you're going to need to get in touch, to get your business in touch later. So we will send all those out. Now, we've had a question from Dan Wheatley from the Prince's Trust. So it's for Michele primarily, but others too as well. That we're seeing increased numbers of 18 to 24-year-olds being disproportionately affected due to the pandemic. However, they always seem to be affected during any dip in the economy. So how can we properly equip our young workforce to be recession-proof and valuable to employers, keep them valuable?
Yeah, I mean, it is a real challenge, isn't it? It's there's not an easy quick fix to this one, I don't think, but there's a number of different elements. I mean, we know when things get tough, you know, employers tend to reduce their investment in training and development and reduce their investment in taking on kind of new staff in terms of growing their talent pipeline. So we absolutely need to encourage employers to not do that, to continue to think about the future, to think about developing the people that they need for the future sustainability and so on. And, you know, there's some fantastic examples. We sponsored the Lancashire Business View Ones to Watch feature. And if you haven't read it, you should, because it features a number of young professionals across Lancashire who are doing amazing things for their businesses and have had that kind of leg up, a bit of investment, and have absolutely flown. So we know, you know, the impact the younger workforce can have on a business in terms of bringing new ideas, new thinking, digital skills in particular. You know, there are digital natives, and, you know, can bring a lot to a business. But I think as well, you know, we've seen, which Andrew referenced earlier, through the Plan for Jobs, incentives from government to support, for example, apprenticeship recruitment and the provision of industry placements and so on. So we need that continued investment from government to enable employers to continue to make that investment, as well as just thinking about the programmes themselves. So the driver from the Skills White Paper about bringing employers closer into that curriculum development, that co-delivery, co-design, and making sure that programmes are really fit for purpose. So whether that's, you know, the new T-levels, whether it's working together on apprenticeship provision, you know, whether it's graduate programmes as well, the more we work together to ensure that provision is developing the skills that businesses need, the more likely employers are to then take on those young people and integrate them into their workforces. So I think, you know, it's a two-way thing, isn't it? It's very much about providers working proactively with employers and vice versa to make sure that we are growing that future talent pipeline that's a benefit to the businesses and those individuals.
Lovely, thanks, Michele. Morag, can I get your thoughts on that from a college perspective?
Yes, a few people already this morning have mentioned T-levels, and I think T-levels are a perfect case study in what Michele was talking about there in terms of co-development, co-design of curriculum. We have been one of about 40 providers nationally who've launched the T-levels this year, and we've launched T-levels in digital and in education and childcare, which are two sectors where there is a real need for skills and a huge skills shortage. And it's been a huge success, apart from the fact that the students haven't been able to physically go out on placements yet. They'll do that next year. But the key thing and a really important thing about T-levels is that they've been developed by employer panels, and they are, if they're delivered properly, delivered or co-designed and co-delivered with employers. So we have employers woven through the T-level throughout the course in every aspect of it. They're there and they're mentoring students, they're working with students. And crucially, it involves a 315-hour minimum industry placement. So for me, the T-level is that huge leap forwards in providing employers with the skilled young people that they need. Because we know that what we're providing are work-ready skills, they're technical, specific technical skills that young people need in order to be able to gain that threshold competence in order to gain a job in the sector that they want to work. And I think if anyone doesn't know about T-levels, I would just Google it and find out. One of the great things that we've found this year is that the young people who have chosen to do T-levels are motivated, intelligent, they're keen, they're coming to us and asking for more work. They want to find out more about the workplace, they want more contact with employers. Their attendance is through the roof, and 99% attendance. And I think it just shows that this is the future. This is where we need to be moving towards a curriculum that that is far more tied up with what employers need. So we are working very closely with employers and making sure that not just what we're teaching, but the way we're teaching it, and those other wider skills like the problem solving, you know, the attitudes, you know, the communication skills, all of those things are tied into and embedded in the qualification. So we're hopefully passing on young people who are ready to hit the ground running when it comes to getting a job.
Super, thanks very much, Morag. I know that Steph wanted to quickly come in on this. Steph, what are your thoughts?
I'm on. Yeah, yes, I did. I was sort of jumping up and down with excitement. And you've sort of just touched on some of that as well, Morag. So for me, as I was saying earlier, I think it's important for role models to go into school, real life role models, but I also feel it's important from an apprentice perspective for us to really shout about the fantastic things that our apprentices have done to show businesses who are potentially nervous about that actually this is a really good thing. You mentioned, Michele, businesses are concerned about the cost, but for me, employing an apprentice, it's a pretty low cost route to getting people into our business. There's lots of funding. I can get 2 apprentices quite often for the same salary as a single older person, and for me that's double win. I get double the ideas, the freshness, everything that you possibly need, and we've just been through a wonderful example of this. That I think if there's any business owners watching this is a perfect example of what apprentices can do for you. We've got 2 apprentices in our marketing department who both joined the business from being 18 years old. One is an apprentice graphic designer, one is just a general apprentice for marketing, another person who's not wholly sure exactly what she wants to do, because who does when they're 18? And we're currently going through a large rebrand exercise. We would normally have paid a third-party agency a lot of money to do that for us because we've got a very small marketing team. But I asked the 2 apprentices, I'm like, you're part of our business, you are the future, you understand our business, you know what we're about, you are our brand. You have got 2 weeks to come up with the new branding, go away and see what you can do for us. And they did, and they've done an absolutely fantastic job. They've come up with better things than I think any agency ever would do, because they're the heart of our business. They understand our business, and I'm so proud of them. The first job they've had as an apprentice has been a huge business changing thing, and they've done a better job than anybody else would ever have done outside our business. And I think the more good news stories you get like that, you can go back out to other businesses and show the world that young people really can make a huge difference to your business with no experience of business at all, because they've got great, new, fresh, innovative ideas. You know, they are the future. So let's show everybody, and then everybody will want to get involved. But that's the comment I wanted to make. I'll shush now because I know we're out of time.
Brilliant, thank you so much, Steph. And you've kind of summed up very nicely there the reasons why employers need to engage with education. And you know, it's not just employers as well, it's any businesses. So any businesses come forward to help with interview prep, share your skills, share your expertise, so important. So we've reached the end of the summit now. Thank you to everybody that's taken the time to join us this morning, and huge thanks to our guest speakers. So we've heard throughout how not only will the support of employers allow pupils to shine and motivate and inspire them, but it will also help businesses to thrive, and that is so important. Businesses, please do sign up to the Skills Pledge and the Given Hour scheme. Do encourage your clients and your contacts to do the same. We'll send all the links out as promised. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody, and fingers crossed for the final on Sunday. As Andrew says, it's coming home. Get that bunting up, Andrew. So thanks again to Daisy for supporting us, and thanks everybody for being with us.